I saw the movie The Debt, and I'm reading the book Prime Ministers, and I want to juxtapose a scene from each, which I think makes a very important point about the state of the world today and the state of the Jewish mindset. Now, The Debt is based on an Israeli film called Achov, and it tells the fictitious story of an effort by the Mossad to capture Dr. Mengele, although he's called Vogel in the film, who was the butcher of Birkenau. He was the guy who decided who went to the gas chambers right away. He did all kinds of gross experiments on thousands of Jews, disfiguring them and killing them. After the war, he escaped, and the Mossad almost captured him, but instead they knew where he was, but they finished the job with Eichmann first. When they went back, he'd escaped. And finally, he drowned swimming. But this is the story that was told as if they had captured him. And what would they have done? And it's a story about a botched effort to capture him. And anyway, I won't go into the details, but there's one very powerful scene that really shook me. Once he's captured and in the apartment, he's trying to work on the minds of these three young Mossad agents. And he says to this young 29-year-old David at one point, he says, "You people were so weak, and it was so easy to kill you. I mean, why do you think it took only 4 soldiers to send 1,000 people to the gas chambers? Because everybody only thought of themselves, and they wouldn't even do anything when we took their children. It was just so easy to kill them. It was so easy to exterminate them," which of course enraged David. But there was a sense that those of us who did not undergo that experience wonder about how that could possibly be. How could that have happened? That only 4 soldiers took 1,000 people to the death and they didn't jump them. Well, we weren't there, of course. You can't judge anybody if you're not in their place, but it certainly was a very powerful scene in the movie The Debt. And then I want to jump forward to the book Prime Ministers, about a scene that actually took place before that, but before the fictitious story of the debt, at the beginning of the state of Israel, when this young woman who was a very young woman, was a volunteer trying to help the Irgun and the Haganah fight the battle against the invading Arabs and to try and drive the British out of Palestine. She volunteers to go into the old city of Jerusalem during the War of Independence, basically knowing she's going to face a certain death. And she wrote the following letter, which is described in the book, a brilliant book, The Prime Ministers. She wrote as she was dying her last act to scribble a letter to her family in London: "Dear Mummy and Dad and everybody, if you get this at all, it will be, I suppose, typical of all the hurried, messy letters. I'm writing it to beg of you that whatever may have happened to me, you will make the effort to take it in the spirit that I want, and to understand that for myself, I have no regrets. We have had a bitter fight. I have tasted Gehinnom, hell. But it has been worthwhile because I am quite convinced that at the end we'll see a Jewish state and the realization of our longings. I should be only one of many who fell in sacrifice. And I was urged to write this because one in particular was killed today who meant a great deal to me. Because of the sorrow I felt, I want you to take it otherwise. To remember that we were soldiers and had the greatest and noblest cause to fight for. God is with us, I know, in his holy city, and I am proud and ready to pay the price it may cost us to reprieve it. Don't think I have taken unnecessary risks. That does not pay when manpower is short. I hope you may have a chance of meeting some of my co-fighters, who survive if I do not, that you will be pleased and not sad of how they talk of me. Please, please do not be sadder than you can help. I live my life fully, if briefly. I think this is the best way, short and sweet. Very sweet it has been here in our own land. I hope you shall enjoy Mimi and Asher the satisfaction you missed in me. Let it be without regrets, and then I too shall be happy. I am thinking of you, every single one of you in the family, and I am full of pleasure at the thought that one day soon, I hope, come and enjoy the fruits of that for which we are fighting. Much, much love. Be happy and remember me in happiness. Your loving Esther." She died and was buried in the military cemetery on Mount Herzl, Jerusalem. She was 22. The author of the book later married her sister Mimi. And so juxtapose those two stories where this butcher of Birkenau, this grotesque doctor, mass murderer, Mengele, called Vogel in the movie, says today, "If it was so easy to kill you people, exterminate, you're so weak you only thought of yourselves." You contrast that with the noble young fighters of the Irgun and the Haganah who battled 5 regular armies without any training, Arab armies, when the state of Israel was declared, and how those young 18-year-olds have to defend their families, their homes, their state against hundreds of millions of of enemies that surround them. The difference, the power, the beauty, the majesty of the Jewish tradition, and the brave souls who understand what's at stake here in serving God and the Jewish people and the world, trying to preserve the state of Israel. I just was struck in reading the book and seeing that movie of the juxtaposition of those two stories, of the sadness, horror of the Holocaust, how 6 million Jews went to the slaughter, and at the same time the noble 600,000, just 10% of that number, men, women, and children who stood off all those Arab armies to preserve Israeli independence, to create the new Jewish state, only the third Jewish Commonwealth, to make possible now, these 62 years later, one of the great countries in history. Shalom.